Hello, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is John Hassett. I'm the Director of Sales for the Americas here at Cappfinity. We're also joined by Trudy Bateman, Head of Strengths Profiles at Cappfinity, and Judy Steinfeld, who works with Cappfinity as a strategic advisor. Our call today is going to be geared for career services, recruiting, and early careers talent professionals who are engaged in the development of our next generation of leaders. The main goal of our call today is to share how our years of research can show the positive impact of a strengths-based approach has not only on early careers talent development for young students, but yourselves and your teams as well. We'll also talk about how to integrate our strengths-based findings with students into career development plans that are actionable and targeted. So let's talk about the Cappfinity's strengths-based approach. Before we jump into the details of that, I want to take a quick minute to introduce Cappfinity and share the background of our history with strengths profiles. Although the strengths profiling might be new to some of you on the call today, the assessment's been around since 2009 as part of an overall suite of assessments offered by our parent company, Cappfinity, based in the UK. Since 2009, since we started Strengths Profile, we've had over 1 million assessments completed in over 50 countries and have over 2,000 practitioners accredited as Strengths Profile coaches. Cappfinity's been in business since 2005 and has grown to over 150 employees with offices in London, Birmingham, Sydney, and now New York, which is where I'm based out of. Cappfinity offers customized strengths-based assessments used for internal hiring as well with our Captivate product, and recently purchased a Seattle-based startup called Koru to offer an assessment measuring against grit, rigor, impact, teamwork, polish, ownership, and curiosity. The last part I want to tell you about of our exciting growth journey is a strategic partnership with venture capital firm Educational Growth Partners, whose mission is to provide funding and capital with organizations that improve education, workplace recruiting, talent management, and skills development. Through this partnership, we're able to provide new and enhanced offerings to our current suite of products, and we're continuously growing new offerings every month. So now I want to turn it over to Trudy Bateman to tell you more about our strengths profile.
Thanks, John, and a very warm welcome. As I say, my name is Trudy Bateman. I've been with Cappfinity for 10 years, and that means for 10 years I've been engrossed in the strengths world across all of the 3 areas that you see across your screens. And I guess, for us, the evidence of strengths is absolutely there. We love science at Cappfinity, and certainly wouldn't want you to take anything at face value. So we've plenty of reading on our website if data and science is something that you love, white papers and all. But I guess in summary, there are benefits for everyone in terms of using strengths. And obviously we're here to talk about students, employers and careers. So in terms of a student or an individual, when they're using their strengths, the increase in confidence, how they articulate their strengths, giving them that narrative around their strength story, boosting that resilience, helping people become stronger in their day-to-day lives, drawing on more of that confidence. When we set about something in terms of what we want to achieve and we apply our strengths, we're more likely to achieve that goal in a better time frame with better results. And we also increase our performance and engagement. I love the engagement one. 6 times more engaged we can be when we enter that workplace, when we start to think about our strengths and play to them. And of course, from an employee perspective, I've been working in teams and team development, again, for a good 10 years now around strengths. And these are some of the things that we see daily in our teamwork, helping teams communicate better, get to know each other better, delegate better, and generally kind of work in a better way to produce better results. I'm just going to hand over to the other Trudy, the lovely Trudy Steinfeld, who's just going to draw on her experience for careers for you.
Thanks so much, Trudy and John. So I'm very excited by this tool, particularly for people who are working in career services who are always trying to find a better way to engage their students and work with their students, leading to better career outcomes. And as Trudy said, there is over 10 years of evidence-based research to support some of the things. So one thing that I know everybody will be very excited about, and I'm very excited about using this tool, is that students are 30 times more engaged with their career services office and their staffs. which means that you're going to have them in front of you. You're able to do the quality work that is really going to lead to more student career and work readiness outcomes. Students are able to really articulate their strength, not only to an employer, but to themselves. They're better in interviews. They're better storytellers about what they want to do. Some of the things that Trudy mentioned in terms of the increased confidence and wellness that we see allows students to really target careers that excite them. And this leads to the kind of exciting and exceptional career outcomes related to both experiential and internships, as well as full-time employment after graduation. So I think that having students in front of them and engaged in a more purposeful way, able to articulate their strengths, really gets to what we all want in the career services profession, which is students really going into fields that they are passionate about, that they will be incredibly successful about, and being very engaged in the whole process and the people that are there to support them in the higher education community. I'm now going to send it back to the other Trudy.
Super, thank you, Trudy. So we're here to talk about strengths profile in the career world. So I just want to draw on kind of how strengths profile is unique. There are other strengths assessments outside of strengths profile, and you may or may not have come across them, and your knowledge of strengths profile may differ. But I think it's really important to talk about how we're different. So we measure for 60 strengths. So that's nearly double the sort of how other strengths assessment providers are measuring for strengths. And what that gives you is a really unique assessment that feels like you. So in my experience, you know, day on day coaching, team development, people say, this stuff is amazing. How do you know this? This is just like me. And we can do that through the fact that we measure for 60 different strengths. So myself, I'm a communicator in other tools around sort of personality and strengths, but within the strengths assessment here at Strengths Profile, we've got 8 communicating strengths. So I've got the strength of counterpoint, and I've got the strength of humour, and I have the strength of listener. There are other strengths that actually I don't have within the communicating family. So you can see how it's very unique in the measures for a very granular set of strengths. We also look at performance, energy and use. It's not good enough just to think about the things that we're good at, the things that we can do. It's really critical to think about the things that we are energized by, that we're motivated, the things that get us out of bed. And we also look at use, again, making us truly unique. What we see over the years is the authentic game changers are really the learned behaviours and the unrealised strengths there. So giving holistic results, not just the realised strengths and weaknesses, which most people will think that they know, but the unrealised strengths, your future talent in your career space, and your learned behaviours. The things that perhaps you thought were your strengths, the things that you've learned to do well but don't enjoy, are the ones that have people asking the most set of questions and most surprised by. All of these results are summarised with an action model, what to do in each quadrant. And again, we guide those students whether they use them wisely, use them when needed, use them less, and use more. So it's a really simple action model that makes sure that in each quadrant, people are looking at their results and actually taking that action. So the introductory profile is something that majority of our students will probably use. We do have an expert profile as well, which we'll come on to. And I guess from our audience, some of you may or may not have your profiles. There's certainly an opportunity to get hold of a free code at the end of this session where you can try Strengths Profile if you haven't. For those of you that do have your profile, feel free to go and grab it and come back and have a look at the results here with me. But we look at within the introductory profile, we look at those 7 realised strengths, the 7 unrealised strengths, the 4 learned behaviours, and the 3 weaknesses. And we reveal the data and the definitions for each of those points, so up to 21 points in total. And what you get there is a definition and the advice. So it really helps people to really think about that strength, what it means for them, how it's seen in action, and what are some of the things that they can maybe take to improve the strengths that they can see. As I say, we'll talk about the expert profile coming on. You can also download a sample on our website. So that's kind of a bit around CAP and strengths profile, but of course we want to talk about the actual how in terms of students and how you would develop them using strengths. So I want to walk through each quadrant, if I may, and actually kind of just give you a little bit of a summary about how that can impact students. And then I'm going to hand over to Trudy Steinfeld with her many years of New York University career services advice, that she's going to bring that to life for us. So I guess if we look at the realised strengths and think about the student world, a lot of students will potentially think that they know what their strengths are. Certainly I have a 17-year-old son. He would have been told what his strengths are by his teachers and so forth, and will have come up with an opinion about what he thinks they are. A lot of students will think that their realised strengths are perhaps the things that they then end up featuring in their learned behaviours. So it's really important, even if students think they know what their strengths are, to actually really go through each one of them and hear the stories behind them. Because if you can obtain a story about that creativity, why it's important, where it came from, how they use it, do they want to be doing it more or less in the future, you know, how do they feel about this strength? Where is it on a scale of 1 to 10 on energy? How much would they, you know, a scale of 1 to 10, would they like to be using it more in the future careers, or even within their current education setting? Can really help bring those stories. And of course, the stories will be that critical piece within their narrative, CV building and assessment centre practice and so forth. So the story building is really important for the realised strengths. The unrealised strengths, another really exciting area for adults, students, anyone in fact, who really wants to think about kind of future development. So the things that you're doing and you're energised in, but perhaps you could be doing them more. These are things that you're not utilising as often. So, you know, how much of these things that are in here, the 7 unrealised strengths, that you'll see in there, how much of those would you like to be using more in your future? What could that look like? What exposure could you get? You know, what internships, hobbies, what are the things that you could be thinking of to get that experience? Who can you learn from? How can you share those with others? Remember, if you're not using them, in terms of the student's perception of how they're using them, they're not using them, people won't be able to recognise them in the student. Of course, as we go on to talk about your own teams as well, and how can they learn from others with those strengths. So I'm just going to pause and hand on to Trudy just to sort of bring those to life with a couple of student stories.
So I know that all of us in the career services field struggle with how to work with a student or students who come in presenting that they're very focused on a particular career area, and that career area, for instance, pre-med or law or perhaps accounting, because of the status involved, or because they've received peer pressure or pressure from other family members that these are good occupations to pursue. But then the student doesn't really have some of the strengths and abilities to be successful. In fact, they find it de-energizing, but they're persisting because of that pressure. And recently, in some of my work with first-generation college students, I have been using the strengths profile, and I have found, and here's a great example, a student at a major large public institution in the state of North Carolina whose family only wanted him to be an accountant. And yet, when we looked at his profile, we found that many of the weaknesses he had, which means no matter how much he persisted, he would not be successful at this, and some of the other learned behaviors would be challenging for him. But yet, when we looked at his strengths and unrealized strengths, we found that he was empathetic, that he loved to speak in front of people, spotlight, and that he was incredibly persuasive. And when we dug a little deeper, we found that his real passion was to really be an advocate for social justice issues. And he was excited about it, and he excelled. And he then pursued an internship in that, and now has 2 full-time job offers in that field, and is probably going to go on to law school after that, using those strengths and unrealized strengths. So to me, if you think about all the situations we have with students, being able to tease that out is really a defining moment for students. And I think it's exceptional to be able to do this, because now we have some really evidence-backed tools to really support students in what their true passions are. Trudy, back to you.
Brilliant, thank you. And it's worth mentioning at Warwick, I know that they use it quite a lot in the medical student space, where helping students to think about which profession to major in within the medical field. And of course, they all look very different. So using these to really tease out where they're going to make their difference in the future. And also with the unrealised strengths, just finally mentioning that they're great in activating social mobility. So they don't just focus, certainly when we look in the assessment world as well, when we're looking at recruitment, we don't just focus on what you've done and where you've been, but we look at motivation, the future passion that you can share, and what you'd love to be doing more of, and sharing more around that. So really unlocking social mobility around the unrealised strengths. So moving into the learned behaviours then, as I mentioned, often a light bulb moment for most people, no matter where you are. These are the things that you are good at, but you don't get out of bed for. These do not motivate you. So having been good at something, perhaps for the last 18 years as students, they would have probably assumed that these were your strengths. So really helping to unlock the value of these and what they want to be doing, your students want to be doing with these in the future. So the ideal is to only use them when needed, rather than be playing to them all the time. So really helping unlock students think around the impact of future career choices around these in areas that they probably would have fallen into. So I've spent many years in workshops and the corporate world where employees will have said, well, I've been doing this for 10 years and assumed it was my strength because I'm good at it. Or the team exercise I'll be running when someone's saying, what do you want to be doing less of? And somebody mentions the learned behaviour, and someone in the team will say, but you're really good at that. And it's like, yes, I've been doing it for years. So your job is to stop people falling into that trap now, rather than in the future. And that's why we love working with universities and in the career space, because it saves us work later on in life, where we're helping people think about careers and roles in their 30s and 40s. It's much better to be working with you, and you can be working with the students to have this impact. And of course, the weaknesses, it makes sense. We look at weaknesses within the profile. We want it to be holistic. We want to understand how weaknesses might hold students back from their career search, or what sort of critical areas of weaknesses that they might need to address in terms of using their strengths to overcome, and thinking about maybe what careers they really do need to avoid, or just get to good enough if they absolutely have to. So one of the most common weaknesses in the world is competitive. So if you're running, they're looking to become something in sales, we would be just suggesting, not that they don't, but perhaps really think about the other strengths that they're going to need to pull on to compensate. And if it really is critical, that spotlight strength is another really popular one, or common weakness is, anywhere where your front of house is going to be an awful lot of work, and what will that look like in the future. So it's that strengths coach helping them to really think about their results and what it means for them in the future. And again, I'm going to go across to my storyteller over there in Boston.
Thanks again, Trudy. I just want to say that, as Trudy said, I think a lot of times students present that they're really good at something, but yet they find that they have no energy, that they're exhausted. So they've maybe excelled in an exam, but then they have to go home and go to their dorm room and sleep for 10 hours because it was so challenging for them to do this. And that, again, is learned behaviors. I think when we connect the dots in the career space, it's students having that light bulb moment saying, yeah, I'm good at it, but I really dislike it. It really sucks the energy at me, and really being able to connect them with the exercises you'll see later in the career development toolkit that really focus on helping students and supporting them choosing meaningful career directions and roles that will excite, energize, and excel them. And I have had students who have had that moment, and this actually not only supported them, but it gave them the courage and the language to really further investigate things that maybe inside they always knew that they were interested in pursuing, but different pressures beat them down and caused them not to do that. And as you know, it's nothing worse in the career space when a student comes in, they want to focus on something that they're struggling with, but somehow they they get there. And then 6 months later, they're sending you an email or they're calling you saying, I'm miserable. I'm so unhappy. I'm not doing well. I got a poor performance review. I'm finding that this is incredibly deflating. Can you help me retool this? And so not only does it avoid those kind of people bouncing back as unhappy alums, but it's very satisfying to those of us who went into the career services space because we really wanted to support students in finding out what their true work passions are. And so it's really a great tool for that.
Brilliant. Thank you, Trudy. And it's certainly something I'm sure most of you are thinking, if only that was around when and I was at 18. I know it's something I'm often reflecting on. But I wouldn't change the journey I've been on, of course. So I mentioned we love data here at Cappfinity, so I just wanted to briefly share with you how a student's top strengths, so taking a sample group of students and a sample set of the norm data that we have around strengths profile, and how students differ to that. So the difference is in blue. So pride is something that's a top strength globally for most people. It sits within those top strengths, I've realised. But compassion is something that's unique to students. So that's how this sheet and slide is working for you here. So anything in blue is where a student is different to the population. So I think this is really fascinating. So whilst there are similarities, I think, how lovely to see that how students feel a bit more authentic perhaps than the rest of us in their compassion and unconditionality and equality, things that they're really important, the values that are coming through here. So I guess from a job perspective, a career advice perspective, aligning careers that are really important to students is going to be really critical, because these are the things that are coming through that are most important to them. So whilst they don't differ too much in the learned behaviours, I think work ethic is always one, no matter who you are and what you're doing, is one to recognise that generally we work to live and not live to work. So making sure that that's a balance for everyone, including your students now in their education, and of course going forward, what will it look like to be more engaged at work? And of course that's where we believe strengths comes in. The unrealised strengths again differ quite somewhat. These are the things that are on the top of their agenda that they'd love to be doing more of. So again, how can they play more to these things in future? And how can you help them with these strengths conversations and questions around doing more in that space going forward? How can they get that exposure now to be putting on their CVs, ready for that narrative going forward? And the weaknesses, you'll see all three changed for students in terms of the top ones. Time optimizer, so they struggle to use time wisely, and I guess that's probably a combination of everything that they have to achieve in their education life, as well as the social that they're probably trying hard to pack in as well. And self-belief, again, I think it's such an important one to draw on here in terms of how strengths can help. So when we use our strengths more regularly, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because we become more confident, we are successful because we're doing things we're good at. So helping students to think about their strengths will really help with those weaknesses as well there around time optimizer and self-belief. So again, we love data. If you love data as well, there is much more on our website as well, white papers around strengths. So I'm going to hand over to Trudy, who's going to talk about a couple of case studies that we've done recently for the career services.
So as Trudy Bateman has been mentioning, we love data at Cappfinity, and we do have a lot of it. And although you may be new to Cappfinity's strength profile, we've actually been doing some case studies around the globe. And Santa Clara is a great example, because not only are people in the career space using it, but also academic partners. And I know how all of you in the career space are always trying to find ways and common ground to work with your faculty who are also working with students in the classroom. And so just a few important takeaways that I think will resonate with you, as they have with me, is that some of the outcomes that we found for students who were using the strengths profile with their advisors is that the awareness of their strengths and being able to articulate it increased by over 76% with students, which is really a dramatic increase in students being able to discuss it and articulate it to not only themselves, but to certainly to an employer. And I think being able to discuss that and really speak to those strengths during a job interview is another incredible takeaway. Another thing is that, you know, the impact of this, that they were able to, you know, over 56% of students said that they were really able to address their own weaknesses in professional situations. They were really actually able to find a way to structure their work, talk about it, and also address it in their professional situations, be it internships or full-time employment after graduation. And again, which we talked about previously, there was a huge increase in higher levels of engagement with the career services team on their campus and in their own career. 94% now saying that they were strongly engaged or engaged, which I know for many of us in that space is really an incredibly important takeaway. So I think there's a great benefit. I also want to take us through another case study at Warwick University, which is in the UK, which some of you may be familiar with. Incredibly strong outcomes, especially as Trudy mentioned before, using it with all types of students, but also especially students that were headed in the medical professions, which you would want people who were really interested in that, engaged and excited and detailed about that work. But one of the things that they found at Warwick is using the strengths profile tool, that in any kind of application or resume, that it went from 40% to 80% of students were able to really more accurately describe their strengths and talk about it and give examples in an application. And then back to either a recruiter or during an admissions process, that it increased from 60 to 80% were really, again, able to very detailed articulate those strengths to those recruiters. And then something that I think we all struggle with, students come in and they're, you know, the world kind of beats them down. They're so pressured, they're dealing with so many different things, and sometimes their self-esteem is really suffers. But because students, when they get a better sense of their strengths and understand their unrealized strengths and some of the other data that they will get about themselves, it really led to a better state of well-being and increased confidence. So even in interviews, the confidence that they were able to display went to 70%, which I think is a really compelling data point, and something that, again, just speaks that the tool is going to increase students' confidence, their awareness of their strengths, a direction that is really right for them, and the ability to back that up with examples. So I really, back to you, Trudy.
Thank you. So I guess that's timely, because it puts us into talking about strengths within your own early careers talent. And I guess there's a brief story of where a couple of weeks ago I was actually at Warwick University doing a team development session for the career services team. So they've done a great job in actually being able to apply the strengths approach to themselves for the last few years, and I've had some great results doing it in terms of their own roles and becoming more fulfilled as well. So typically when we run team development, we look at the expert profile. Again, you'll find samples on both of our websites both of the profiles on a website, and you'll get access to the introductory profile to take as well following the course here today. But the expert profile is used to combine the team profile data, so that's the one that we use. It gives you the insight into all 60 strengths. It looks at and family patterns as well, as you'll see a couple of shots here. So it's more in depth in terms of coaching and gives more insight into your strengths. So we have 2 profiles for 2 different occasions. And then very quickly, in just terms of summary, how do you strengthen your own teams and yourself using strengths? So certainly for me, practice what you preach, to be able to talk to those students in a really authentic way, share your own strengths, stories yourself. So there's something around your own professional development that's obviously very critical, knowing what you want to be doing yourself going forwards in terms of those career conversations and how you get there using your strengths. So really thinking about having some time out for yourself as you go through this process as well. In terms of your own team development, how you work together and complementary partnership is probably where teams make the most difference. We are often stuck thinking, well, because I don't like rules, I'm assuming that most of my colleagues don't like rules, so I'll be stuck here till 10 o'clock at night struggling with a particular task, when actually, of course, sharing strengths around, sharing those weaknesses around, complementary partnering is one of the most significant ways in which you can use strengths. Don't take it all on yourself. They can do peer coaching, and that appreciation of what every one of you bring in terms of your strengths to your career team is really critical to think about. That sort of the celebration of what you bring, and if each of you are going to be absolutely amazing in half a dozen things, it's better to know that rather than be kind of well-rounded in all of the areas. So that's where we see most difference in terms of teams. And if you're lucky enough to be a manager, I certainly am, I find that the strengths approach is really helpful, just front of mind all the time. And in some of these ways, in terms of setting the right goals for my team when it comes to those review times, making sure I put the right team members on the right tasks and project teams, having honest conversations around sort of where they want to go in the future, what that might look like, and of course running my own team reports just to make sure that we are checking in and we don't share the same strengths, too many strengths of the same. If you all had 10 out of 10 out of pride, that's an awful lot of checking and dedication to the project, perhaps less execution. And of course, you want to be able to spot gaps as well. So a regular check-in around the collective strengths as well. So that would be my advice in terms of how you might use strengths in your own career space. And Boston they gave a presentation quite recently for us, but they really brought this to life in terms of their team members and thinking about how each and every one of them can play to their strengths. I know the bottom line was that the sort of front office around the major events, they weren't operating so effectively. They weren't really thinking about who could do what and in what way. So really helping think around the ownership of what they were doing, how they were doing it, who they needed to work better with, and as it sort of says here, sort of work smarter rather than harder. And I think we're all guilty with that. That's where our common learned behaviour of work ethic comes in. Being able to work in a more engaged way. So they had some great results using it from a team perspective. So, and I guess many case studies we can share with you. We obviously won't do it on this call here today, but visit our website if you've got some further questions around case studies, because there are many there. I mean, this list is growing all the time. We currently have over 1 million users on our strengths profile platform. We work with over 100 universities globally and over 5,000 organisations. So join us when you can. The list is growing and people seeing impact, really, really fruitful impact with the people that they're working with. So this is the final section of our presentation. It's soon time for coffee. Although I guess if you're listening to it, you might have paused and got one of those in the meantime. But I just want to share with you how we can help you do all of this, because we have the tools that you need to be able to do this. There are 4 tools in total. I've just finished talking about those career services profiles, so the expert tool giving you that deeper insight into yourself so that you can get those team reports. We have a special rate introductory profile for educators for both expert and introductory profiles. So they're the typical student profiles. I'm just going to come on to talking about the Career Development Toolkit and online accreditation briefly, but again, being a real resource to support you on your strengths journey. Our philosophy here at CAP, our mission is to strengthen the world. We can't do that alone. We need you to help us do that. And to do that, we've created the tools for you to be able to do that. So I want to just mention briefly the new Career Development Toolkit, which is going down exceptionally well. I think certainly most universities that we are now working with have one and think it's an exceptional tool to be able to just draw. It's the how. How do I actually apply this with strength? So we've done the hard work for you. So in the toolkit, you've got the introduction, there's tips for students, but the piece I just want to talk about is the 11 career conversations. So the 11 conversations are on the left and how you might use them here on the right. And I guess really helping students to think about their self-awareness. So many conversations, uncover those natural talents, understand what they do, why they do it, and how to do more of it, how to be absolutely at their best. Thinking about their development, which universities and job offerings are going to really kind of suit their values and strengths. So the career anchor piece being a really helpful one to think about, not just my strengths, but my values and who I am and what I want from life, and what kind of organisation will suit me, what kind of role would really suit me. And then thinking, of course, around the direction that people want to go on as well. So maybe not just really thinking a little bit more diversely around the conversations they've perhaps already had. Actually, my strengths in people aren't as strong as I thought. Maybe I need to be looking at this. Actually, my thinking strengths are in full throttle, so I really need to be thinking about more of that and how I access that. And of course, well-being. Well-being is a really important area to strengthen students, so we look at resilience and self-talk. So in the toolkit, we provide all the conversations and worksheets. Most of our users, universities and college students will use them in a one-to-one or a workshop setting. So it brings maybe 20 students together and help them do some peer coaching together. So all of our worksheets lend themselves to one-to-one and a workshop setting. And the online accreditation then isn't something that you can complete over 15 hours. It's video based, and then you get a live feedback debrief at the end. So you're assessed live with a CAP coach towards the end of that session. So lots of learning over your own time period, and of course being able to pick and choose when you do that around your time scales, and also getting to know your own strengths at the end of that, coming away really knowing best practice and application of strengths profile, something that we'd recommend all careers advisors go through to be able to really understand and unlock those students. So that's it from myself, Trudy Bateman, and I'm going to pass to John to wrap up for us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Trudy and True. Really appreciate your time today, and thank you everybody for listening. We hope it was beneficial for you all. If you're interested in learning more, please check out our website here for careers pricing and sample products. If you'd like to get in touch with us for any questions or even a free code to a strengths profile assessment, please send us an email at inquiries@strengthsprofile.com. And then if you'd like to reach out to any of us, or to either further explore how we might be able to help your specific organization, or answer any questions that you have, or even just do a deeper dive on the conversation today, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll get this deck out to you as well. But we really appreciate the time, and look forward to speaking to you again. So thank you for your help with our journey to strengthen the world. Have a great day.